Hi guys, welcome back to the Average Pundits, a weekly podcast for all things Premier League. As always, joining me to the side of me is Reese.
How are we doing?
And then we also have two guests today for our themed episode based on Tottenham Hotspur. We've got lifelong supporter Sam Ozier.
Yo.
And we've also got lifelong supporter Dom Hebron.
Hi guys.
Brilliant. So, again, like always guys, we're going to have a little bit of a rundown. Just first discussing what's happening in the Premier League. Reese, what's happened?
So, interesting week of the Premier League we've just witnessed.
Yeah,
First game I'm going to start with is Crystal Palace beating West Ham 2-1. Obviously, Allaire opening up the scoring.
He's kind of finding his shooting boots a little bit more.
He is, yeah. He's starting to find his form a bit, and hopefully starting to prove himself as a top signing for West Ham.
Yeah.
And then obviously Van Aanholt equalising with a penalty.
Again, Van Aanholt, his name just absolutely just terrifies me. I mean, he's
Yeah.
terrored United on so many occasions.
He's
now.
such a good player.
He is a good left back, to be fair.
He's just one of them that just appears randomly and just occasionally will just do a madness and then disappear again.
Genuinely.
Yeah. And then obviously the VAR assisting Patrick Ayew. Jordan Ayew. I don't know where Patrick came from.
Patrick, are you?
Patrick. It's been a long week. I've just mixed Patrick Van Aanholt and Jordan Ayew. Yeah, it's been a long day. But yeah.
What's the next game then?
So the next game is kind of a doozy really. Watford and Sheffield United. Nothing really too interesting to talk about here, other than Dean Henderson's absolutely class goalkeeping display.
He's starting to look like quite a good keeper, I'd say.
Yeah.
I'm not just being biased. I mean, yeah, he's a United boy, but I mean, week in and week out, he's starting to show himself.
Yeah, it's just that mistake last week against Liverpool that let him down.
Pretty much. He started to come into his own and started to show his potential as maybe one of England's next goalkeepers going forward.
I'd be perfectly happy seeing him as on number 2. I mean, if Romero's going to be on his way out soon.
The next game was an absolute goal machine of a game. Aston Villa hammering Norwich, 5-1.
That's a weird one. I wasn't expecting Villa to do anything there. I was expecting Norwich to just come out and
Such an
move
interesting
on from the
result.
City one, but
Just a strange club with Villa. I mean, they've come. I feel like all the newly promoted clubs. I mean, we said this in the podcast
Numerous
before,
occasions.
They're definitely kind of holding their own right now. But I mean, again, like week in and week out performances. If they're going to keep this up, I mean, they're doing far better than a lot of the Premier League teams currently, which should be performing at that kind of high level.
I mean, Wesley as well. He's finding his shooting boots, continuously trying to up his stock at Aston Villa, scoring in the 14th and the 30th to give Villa a 2-0 lead at half time.
I'm quite interested in that John McGinn. I think he's an absolute.
McGinn, he's very very talented. One of the better Scottish players in the league. Obviously, dead behind Andrew Robertson, but John McGinn, he's a very talented midfielder, and I can see him moving on from Aston Villa. Maybe not at the end of the season, maybe at the end of next season, trying to find a better club, maybe like Everton or Wolves.
could even get into one in the top 6 really.
He could.
I reckon he
Target that.
Maybe
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening.
Maybe at an Arsenal or a Chelsea.
or United.
And you had
Well, it was linked to United in some way, wasn't it?
50 million.
50 million.
Ooh.
I mean, now I think I'd take that.
Over Jesse Lingard.
Over Lings.
So then you had Conor Hourihane and Jack Grealish adding 2 more, and then an absolute peach from Douglas Luiz to put the 5th in for Villa.
It was a hell of a strike.
Absolutely brilliant. Picture perfect from him, and then Dermich for Norwich putting in the consolation goal.
The Pookie party was cancelled this weekend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Whoever put them in their fantasy team is starting to realise, it was just an August thing.
Maybe the magic's wearing off now.
Absolutely. The next game, we are going to go to Liverpool's narrow 2-1 victory over Leicester.
It's another one of those games, wasn't it? Like, luck went on Liverpool's side in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting just sick of it. I mean, Liverpool obviously. I'm not delusional. I know they're amazing, but it's just really hard to see right now.
The signs are starting to point again. Whether they could keep it up all season and whether City could claw it back again, like they did last season. But at the minute, it's hard to see Liverpool not winning the league this year. But
I mean, we are 8 points ahead, so that can maybe get up to 10 and 12 within the coming weeks if City continue to drop points. But obviously, Sadio Mane continuing his form. He's probably our best player at the minute, form-wise.
I'd probably agree with that, I'd say.
So yeah, he scored in the 40th, and then Maddison in the 80th to equalise for Leicester. Really put a shake in the Liverpool fans' boots. But then
it was always going to be a tough game, I think. I feel like if anyone's going to, give Leicester a run for their money, give Liverpool a run for their money, I'd say it was going to be Leicester.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, they're at the minute they're trying to challenge the top four, and why not? They can do it. With this current run in form, as we said last week on the podcast, they have the ability to be a top four team. They've done it before. They can do it again.
Yeah, definitely.
But then, the penalty to put us 2-1 ahead in the 95th minute did it for Liverpool. So another sort of not really tame, because like Nick Pope's in the Burnley 1-0 win against Everton, with Jeff Hendrick scoring the 72nd minute. Nick Pope just had this game all over him. He made some outstanding saves. So did Jordan Pickford. This game was a real battle of the goalkeepers.
I mean, what's going on with Everton right now, man?
I think it's not long before Silva goes. They're in the bottom three. Again, you're looking like they've wasted the money again in the summer. It's just one of them. They could spend as much money as they want. They're never going to break into the top six as this carries on.
Yeah,
it is a trend for Everton at the moment, isn't it? They seem to spend quite a bit of money and never really make it into that bracket.
It is weird. I felt like for a long time they've been almost teetering, but it just doesn't seem to be happening for them.
Nope. The next game I'd like to go on to is Arsenal versus Bournemouth, which is a 1-0, narrow 1-0 win. It was scored by David Luiz in the 9th, and then they just sort of hung on and braced for dear life at the chance of Bournemouth ever getting an equaliser. It was nice for Arsenal to hold out for the whole 80 minutes.
It wasn't nice.
I mean, obviously it's not nice, but like as an Arsenal fan's point of view, holding out at this stage is better than drawing.
So a small W.
Small W.
Arsenal only takes small W's. Another real goal fest. Chelsea beating Southampton 4-1.
Yeah.
And I mean, all four goal scorers. You don't really see this often. That are all different. So Tammy Abraham scoring in the 17th. Mason Mount then scoring a double. Putting the double on Chelsea's score.
Again, that's Tammy Abraham and Mason Mount. Those two seem to be absolutely shining in that Chelsea squad at the moment.
Yeah, they do, to be fair.
That transfer ban working for Chelsea this season with them two showing him.
Yeah.
Question is, if that transfer ban wasn't there, would they be playing? Would they have just gone, let's go sign X player for stupid amount in them positions?
Let's try for Harry Kane.
He wouldn't go that.
And then you got N'Golo Kante with a very nice goal on his own. Kante only scores good goals.
He only does.
I've come to that conclusion. He only scores good goals.
He's just still an amazing player to this day.
Yeah. And then Michy Batshuayi in the dying minutes of the game to put Southampton to bed. And then obviously Danny Ings in the 30th. Danny Ings are starting to get his shooting boots back as well.
Yeah, he's finding a bit of form. I mean, I just feel Southampton for so long now just have not been the level of a club for the Premier League.
No, they've been teetering on the bottom for a while.
If they get rid of Hassan Hutel, I think it could be trouble. I think he's a good manager. They've got to stick with him. They can't get rid of him. They won't get anyone better here. If they got rid of him, I think it'd be heading to the Championship.
Yeah, it'd be game over.
And now we move on to one of the more wilder games that I mean, to be fair, not to me, I called this.
You actually did call this.
I called Man City on their loss, and Wolverhampton beating them 2-0. I didn't think they'd keep a clean sheet, but I knew that Wolves were going to at least score 2 goals.
The exact same goal twice.
Yeah, Adama Traore in the 80th.
It's typical Wolves away to the top 6, just sit back, hit them on the counter. I mean, they did it how many times last season to take points off the top 6? And
they did it to us back at the later stages of last season. And why can't they do? I mean, they're going to do it. They've done it to City. Who else are they going to do it to next?
It's just the consistency they lack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they can do these amazing results. It's just
I think it's because the way they play to sit back and counter attack, and whereas other teams will sit back and they'll be like, "You're not very good attacking us."
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Moving on then, Reece. What's the next game?
And we have got Newcastle beating Manchester United 1-0. Matty Longstaff with his debut game, debut goal, and debut man of the match.
Had to be a Longstaff, didn't it?
It did. I think that he had an unreal game. He was all over the pitch, delivering corners to potential goals. I mean, to be fair, Man United, they dominated the game, really. They had more of the ball. They can't put a shot on target.
We can't score. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys saw the De Gea interview.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I mean, a fair play to him.
Seemed very beaten up about it.
Yeah, I mean, he can come out and say it, though. I mean, you want to see that. You want to see a bit of fire. I mean, I feel like our defence and the keeper, that's not the problem. We can't score to save our lives. It's awful.
I think getting rid of Lukaku was a big mistake now.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think you're lacking that goal threat up front. Like, the dynamic that Lukaku brings is...
He's a finisher. He guarantees you at least 10, 15 goals a season, which I don't think Rashford, as good as he may be, he won't give you that.
I saw a stat. It was everyone taking the mick out of Nicholas Bentner for scoring, what was it, 45 in around 170 games?
I think
Marcus
I saw the stats
Rashford
as well, yeah.
has done 48 in around the same.
A few more as well, isn't it? It's not...
Yeah.
It's just unnerving. I mean,
It's worry that he's going to burn out the same as...
Yeah,
many
it's
other
the same as
English players
Bernard.
do.
I feel like every United fan wants to see the kid succeed. I feel like every England fan on a grander scale wants to see him succeed. But right now, I mean, there's just so many question marks, and they just keep growing.
Yep.
He's lost his English place now. Abraham's better than him.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
think Tammy
In that
Abraham's
front
getting
three
a
for
call.
England, he doesn't get in ahead of Kane, Sterling or Sancho at the minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I remember saying that like a while ago when we were watching some of the friendlies. You know,
When we watched Kosovo.
Yeah, we watched the Kosovo game. I remember both of us saying, where does Rashford fit into this?
Absolutely. I don't think he's getting anywhere near that England front three at any point.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of homegrown English talent, a team with full of it is a team that have lost 3 now at the weekend, and will be the main topic for today's podcast. Tottenham Hotspur losing 3-0 to Brighton and Hove Albion.
Again, a surprising result to say the least. Dom, mate, what were your thoughts on that game?
It's starting to highlight the cracks that are coming in the team now. I mean, you're just looking at a team which is just absolutely lost. It doesn't seem to have any kind of motivation at all, and it's it's been building for a while, and it's just kind of seemed like it's come to a head now, where the manager lost faith in the players, and the players seem to have lost faith in the manager, and the whole hierarchy seems to really need to take a look at itself and think, well, what have we got to do at this stage?
Sam, would you replicate that?
Yeah, it just seems that I feel as though Madrid was the moment where it had to happen then or won't ever happen. I think the whole of 2019 as a whole has been an absolute disaster. The VAR at the Etihad, as great as it was, that papered over the cracks that we almost absolutely threw that away from at one point being 3-1 up in an aggregate, with 2 away goals. You cruising there, you just got to see that out, and then you conceded 2 goals quickly after that, and then put us back to square one, and just we absolutely almost threw it away. Got through that, got to semi-final, and then if it weren't for Lucas Boris, we wouldn't even have been in that final. I think that just papered over the cracks of an absolute dreadful 2019. I mean, we have won twice away in the league this year to Cardiff and Fulham, who aren't even in the league anymore, and that was at the start of the year in January.
It is certainly an interesting position which Tottenham find themselves in right now. And we will go on to talk a little bit more about their situation. But first things first, Reece, we got the hype train.
So we've only had the singular submission this week, and that is Arsenal's latest signing from the summer, Kieran Tierney.
Okay.
He's a very young player. Came from Celtic in the summer. Scottish prodigy. Probably, I mean, obviously not getting in the Scottish national team because of Andrew Robertson. Being in the same position is not very good on his part. However, he's very promising. He's very young. He's got a lot of room to grow, especially in an Arsenal team where all he's got to do is misplace Sead Kolasinac and try and help that back four.
Yeah. I feel like personally for me, I think when they signed him, I think it was an interesting signing, but I think that him playing in the Scottish League is going to be his hindrance. I feel like you have that title attached to you playing in that league. Obviously, the Scottish League gets kind of bantered around quite a lot anyway, especially amongst the English Premier League fans. So I feel like a transition from coming to the Scottish League into the Premier League, I feel like it's a difficult one. I mean, we've seen it happen. I mean, look at Virgil van Dijk coming from Celtic down to
absolutely.
Southampton. Look at the climb he's embarked on since then.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that have come from the Scottish leagues. I mean, was Lawson back here, when he went from Celtic to Man United, was it?
Was that Madison? Madison was in
Madison
playing
as well.
for Aberdeen a few years ago on loan from Norwich.
Yeah.
And look at him, he
James
played well
White,
up
yeah.
there. Came back down to Norwich.
There are a
Got
few
his
gems
Leicester.
in the Scottish division, and I think it's just a matter of time before a lot of those players do get recognised and are able to be brought up to the forefront of the Premier League or the Championship, and then eventually brought up to the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I mean, if we were going around then, guys, if we had to put Tierney in a bracket, as always, we have the poor, we have the average, we have the good, and we have the world class going up there as well.
And also the prospect.
And also the prospect as well.
Prospect category.
I feel like personally, if it was me,
Absolutely.
right now, I'm probably going to put him in that average category. I mean, we saw him do amazing things at Celtic, especially on big stages as well. But I feel like until a run of regular form in the Premier League comes about and he's able to kind of show what he is, I think personally he's no more than an average player right now.
That's fair enough.
Personally, Dom, what would you say, mate?
I think I'd put him in that prospect category, purely because he's it's more of an investment from Arsenal. I think it's going to take time for him to develop in the Premier League. I don't think he's quite used to the pace of it yet, so it's going to take a while for him to be able to adjust to that level. Obviously, the Premier League being arguably the most intense league, it's going to take time for him to get to that level. But once he's at that level, I can see him being a world-class player.
Brilliant, Sam.
I think the same is in the prospects. I think it depends how he copes when he first comes up against that big Premier League winger that he has to face, whether he can handle it. He's still a bit for me. Obviously, I've got that Spurs tinted glasses on, but at the minute, it could be a decent little signing for him. But I hope it doesn't work out for him.
Yeah, I think prospect is where I'm leaning for all reasons that Sam and Dom have actually already highlighted. He's young. I mean, he's 18, 19 years of age.
I think so. I mean, he is still really young, isn't he?
Yeah. So
21, I think, or something like that.
he's very young. But as Sam says, until he comes up against that, I mean, he's playing on the left. So until he comes up against a Raheem Sterling, a Mohamed Salah type player, he's not going to have that challenge yet. And if he copes with it well, then you know what, he could go on to be one of the best left backs in the league. But until we see that, I don't see. He could either end up in the average or he could end up being absolutely world class.
An interesting climb I think he's got this season in the league. But moving on to the main topic of this week's podcast, it is Tottenham Hotspur. It's just why we brought in a couple of Tottenham fans, lifelong supporters. We want to hear these people's opinions, and I mean that's the whole point of this podcast. We want to get the opinion of the general kind of average viewer. So first things first, I want to point out Pochettino's situation at the club. Hiring and firing managers, it's not really something Tottenham are predominantly for. I'd say there are far more notorious clubs for that. And I mean, what a climb the man has had. But at the moment, is his position vulnerable?
I think at the minute it's very vulnerable, but he's got the credit in the bank with Levy because what he's done is he took over a team that was an absolute mess under what had happened with AVB and Sherwood. That team was a disaster. There were so many bad apples in the squad, and he managed to weed them out straight away, and he built arguably one of the best teams. The best team I've seen in my life, so probably the best team we've had in the Premier League era. It was just missing that key trophy that was obviously always joked about, but he came close so many times. It feels like this is the end of a cycle. It's whether they want to stick with him and go what he did before, weed out the bad apples again and build another squad. Whether he can do it, it depends whether he gets a backing again. But
what would you say, Dom?
I mean, the team's gone through a stage where when we were first with Pochettino, we were, as Sam said, a bang average team, and we've gone through over the 5.5 years or something he's been at the club. We've gone through level to level to level, and we've gone strength to strength.
Yeah.
But we've now come to a ceiling almost where the next strength is winning a trophy.
Yeah.
And we just don't seem to be able to push through that wall of becoming a team that's won a trophy. We haven't done it for 11 years.
I think it's something that, I think what we've all discussed about in general. It's something that I've said for a while now. A lot of the time, a trophy, no matter how big or how small, once that trophy's been achieved, I feel like that can almost unlock a club. I mean, Liverpool went for an extremely long spell without any trophy. I mean, what a trophy to win. I mean, they're obviously winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
But now, every week in and week out, the United Premier League fans are by that I mean just Premier League fans in general, not just United. But we're all kind of looking and we're thinking, what's next for Liverpool? I mean, the sky's the limit right now for them, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Tottenham, is that trophy going to come?
Yeah, I think, as Sam said, it's like the end of a cycle. I think that Champions League final was the end of the cycle. It was supposed to end with Pochettino, Kane, Lloris. They're all holding this Champions League trophy as this squad that have grown so much within the past couple of seasons. Especially with Kane coming into, he's starting out, there's this unknown back in 2015 and then coming into his own and being probably one of the best strikers in the world.
The best.
Yeah, the best.
The best.
So when you've got this team and you're like, okay, we've beaten Man City, we've overcome Ajax, and you face this wall that is Liverpool. I mean, it wasn't as challenging as, let's say, Man City was, because obviously their form was better than us that season. It was doable for Spurs, but them coming up short, I think, has put a halt on them. It's become apparent for players like Christian Eriksen and their back line that have been like, we might not be able to win a trophy here, so it might be time for us to, before we hit the apex of our career, let's go and find somewhere else where we can win trophies.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I look at that team and I see class, I see elite talent, and I wonder. I mean, it must be frustrating for the players and the manager to have that kind of talent around and just not seem to be able to take it to the next level. I mean, for a very, very long time now, you guys have been a big club. You haven't been one of these teetering clubs. You've been part of the top six, formidably cemented in there. So, I mean, I'm wondering, I mean, this season, I mean, like, it's the FA Cup. I mean, that's the FA Cup and Premier League, obviously. The FA Cup looking like something which could still happen.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's doable for you guys?
I'd like to see him prioritise that and go, let's go win that. But the thing with the owners at the minute, they're more focused on the monetary side. So the main aim at the moment seems to be, it's very similar to what Arsenal went through in that period, but after the move to the Emirates, it's get that top four, nothing else matters, because the money that you were getting from being in the Champions League and your TV money is so much greater than just winning an FA Cup. So I can see from an owner's standpoint, but from a supporters, it's just frustrating. 2 FA Cup semi-final losses, a League Cup final loss, a League Cup semi-final loss, a Champions League final loss, a second place finish, a third place finish. It's overachieving, but it's getting to the point now where it's like we just want that trophy to see.
Yeah,
because there's been worse Spurs teams that have won a trophy.
It's almost like Sam said. We just need to invest in one trophy and maybe try and concentrate on that and prioritise. We know we can get top four in the Premier League, and we know we can have at least a half decent run in the Champions League. So why not go for an FA Cup or a League Cup just to say, well, we've got a trophy under our belts now. It might not be as significant as, let's say, a Champions League, but it's a trophy we can win and we can build on that from there. But without having that foundation to build on, we're kind of stuck in a loop where we're finishing top four, decent cup runs, end of the season, and then the cycle will just continue. And it's like, yeah, you can have a decent cup run, but you can't go on and win it. We can't push that extra level just to win it.
Yeah. I feel like as well, I mean, obviously Tottenham are now, because obviously that big club kind of status, like growing and growing, pulling power of getting players into clubs as well, that's something which a lot of the top six are kind of like specialise in, and we've seen lower clubs down in the Premier League being able to kind of attract some of these talents which may have traditionally have gone to larger clubs. But right now, I feel the whole saga over the summer with players like Paulo Dybala, someone of his status, but generally built up quite a lot of hype around with the Spurs fans. So I'm wondering, would someone like him have solidified this season for you? Would he have been the next kind of thing to take you to another level?
That's kind of that's a point where when we got to that Champions League final, and we lost that Champions League final, that was an amazing season because we didn't sign anyone in those 2 windows, and for Pochettino to do that is incredible. But he did about as much as he could with that team at that time. That's the point where you need to look at financial investment and start saying, look, we've got a team now that is capable of doing that. We just need a little bit of extra quality. And I feel like Dybala, or we were linked with Coutinho for a little bit for a loan deal, would have been that little edge that we needed just to get to that stage where we could win a Champions League final.
Again, I mean, the Galactico kind of names, the Dybalas, the Coutinhos that get thrown around. Everyone likes to see these players come into the club. It's just whether they would be an actual kind of a matching fit. Sam, do you think Dybala would have been good in the club?
I think the Argentina link with the club, I think it could have worked out, but the one that I would have preferred every day would have been Coutinho, because just watching him against us the other week, against when we played Bayern, he didn't score, but the way how he played, I was like, you could tell he was like leaps and bounds above how Eriksen's playing at the minute. But I'd say when they're both off form, they're at a level playing field. But the way how Eriksen is at the minute, he's clearly that he doesn't want to be there. So they should have just took the money for him in the summer and gone and invested in a Coutinho or a Dybala or even a James Maddison from Leicester would have been a great shout.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to reinvesting players, they had a huge loss when they sold Kyle Walker. They sold Kyle Walker and didn't really replace him. So
we signed Aurier and kept Trippier as replacement, and those two are just two of the most shambolic right backs I've ever seen at defending. Sure, Trippier could put in a cross, and everyone in the World Cup bought into the hype of Trippier. That free kick against Croatia, as good as it was, but his defending it's not a top team standard.
No, absolutely.
I feel like Trippier is always going to be revered for that moment. Like he's just going to have a unified love of it. I think.
To score, in the semi-finals of the World Cup, you've always got that hype around. Oh, remember when Trippier scored in the because we had as England fans we haven't had that in a while. To get to such lengths and all be on the brink of going to the World Cup final. We haven't had that in forever.
It was half an hour away from a World Cup final.
Exactly, and then for that to have been overshadowed by Mario Mandzukic is quite heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, but then you look at Trippier's performances for Spurs, and he was never at a point where you were like, oh, okay, he deserves the world class status of being one of England's best right backs. He just didn't mirror the performance.
I feel like he's fallen quite well on his feet getting that move to Atletico. I feel like they'll get a job out of him.
Simeone is just a manager that people buy into him and they'll run through brick walls for Simeone, similar to how the players did originally under Poch, but at the minute they're just completely lost.
It's like you say, you mentioned that there's a lot of talent in the squad. There's no use in having talent in the squad if you don't have motivation and you don't have a manager who's going to keep control of that dressing room.
No, that is true. I feel like Poch has kept that dressing room for so long now. What could have changed in such a short amount of time?
That was the argument for so long. There was so many arguments of what you do to improve, but you look at Man United under Fergie. They won everything and anything, but he still made change. I think he built about 3 or 4 different teams at Man United. Kept on changing. Didn't stick with the same group. He kept on bringing in new blood, new players, and it was a success. But I think that's in something the other day. There's so many players that's still in that team from so long ago. I think from when we lost 5-1 to Newcastle on the last day of that season in 2016, I think it's 8 out of that starting 11 still play regularly for the club.
That is a crazy start.
Yeah, I think it was all since Jurgen Klopp came in, wasn't it? When his first season, 2 of the players from that 11 at Liverpool are still here, whereas there was 8 players from Spurs that are still regular in the teams. Also you've got you mentioned Eriksen's performance. Could that have anything to do with the fact that he does want to ship himself off?
There's a lot of players clearly don't want to be there at the minute.
Yeah, his players like Eriksen, Vertonghen, you've got Toby Alderweireld. They're all expiring contracts. Could they just be running out their time to obviously win something there in another place?
It's a point where when he brought those players in, they were young players that were hungry to win games. And now it's come to a point where, as Sam mentioned, the cycle is now come to a point when those younger players are now slightly older, slightly more experienced, and they want to win those trophies. And it's now come to a point where if we don't win anything soon, then those players are going to have different agendas where they know they've got the talent to go to a better team or a team which is more consistent. And they're now starting to voice that opinion and say, well, look, I know I'm better than the team are playing at the moment, so ship me somewhere else.
Yeah, I feel like the hardest one to face would probably be a Harry Kane exit, wouldn't it? I don't think right now that he has any intentions of leaving your club, but how long can you be a player of his caliber and not have a trophy under your belt? I mean, his stats are going to go down in history, but I mean, not having any trophies to back it up with, I think it's alarming.
But I think it's becoming very similar to the Shearer situation when Shearer was at Newcastle. Like, Shearer could have easily gone to Man United and won everything, but he went, I want to stay for my hometown team and just try my best for these. Hopefully, touch wood, he goes and wants to become could arguably become Tottenham's greatest ever player if he goes on and helps us to win the trophies. It's whether he wants to try and help us win the trophies or take the easy route, as to say, and go, oh, I'll go join Madrid and it's whether he wants to, as much as Bale has won everything with Madrid, he's been disdain from the fans towards him. Whether Harry Kane could take something like that.
I feel like Gareth Bale's exit from Tottenham as well at the time, although it was a big loss, I think a lot of fans were sad to see him go. The money which that came in brought a bit of an excitement around the club. Like, I wonder where this money is going to be invested in. Obviously, we can look at that in hindsight now and think that money did not exactly get invested massively correctly.
Well, they could have returned the money on that, because if they'd been smart and they sold Eriksen in the summer, they could have made a good chunk of that money back just from Eriksen. I mean, Halamela's still there. That just baffles me as well.
That Bale money bought Soldado in, didn't it, as well?
There were some absolute duds in that. Soldado, Chiriches.
Sigurdsson in there as well.
Sigurdsson was already there.
He was already there. Kirikesh?
Yeah, Kirikesh.
Stonbuli was one of them as well, I'm pretty sure.
Benji Stonbuli.
Yeah. Kapui as well. Some
players that have then gone and just played averagely for average teams.
I mean, a credit to Pochettino though. I mean, you look at we mentioned some of those players that got brought in under the AVB era. Some of those players were obviously clearly not going to work out. I mean, you look at the team now, and although maybe the results aren't coming in right now, you've got to credit him on his business and the kind of players that have been brought in.
He's done it on a shoestring budget. Like, you compare what he's done compared to, say, what Pep's done. Pep's just been given an open checkbook, and yeah, it's worked and he's won everything there is to win in England. But arguably, Pochettino, what he's achieved, could be argued to be just as great.
So, and that is the argument. So, I mean, a manager like Pep Guardiola, all the money under the sun. I personally feel like he's a good tactician as well. But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, the main argument would be, yeah, he has all the money. But I mean, Tottenham, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that you have that money as well. I mean, you may not be getting backed fully like the boy Pep is, but I mean, your club is huge. I mean, the amount of money they just got spent on that absolutely phenomenal stadium.
There's the NFL money as well in there. It's just it's an investment company that owns the club, so they don't want to put the money in. They've taken so much money out. So
I mean, we definitely have that money. It's just we're not willing to dish it out. I mean, Pochettino, he mentions on several occasions about a rebuild and rebuilding the club. You know, signing 4 players in 3 transfer windows is not a rebuild.
No, I would agree with that. I feel the club is not a lot unless they've got the backing, I would say.
No. I think like bringing in. I think Spurs this season they brought in Ndombele, who I think is a good young player. But obviously he needs time to adapt.
The worrying thing about him is, I noticed in the Bayern Munich game, he in the first half an hour especially, he looked absolutely amazing. I was like, this is one of the signings of the season, and then he just seemed to be so tired by the time that second half rolled around, and it was evident as he was arguably at fault for 2 of their goals, and
he does just run around. He tries to do what N'Golo Kante does. He just runs around the pitch, but he doesn't quite have the stamina.
He's more of an attacking Kante, I'd argue.
Yeah, like I'd say him and Sissoko are maybe. I mean, Sissoko's probably a little less talented than Ndombele, but I'd say they're probably 2 similar-ish players.
If Sissoko could play football with the feet, he'd be arguably the best player I've ever seen in the history of football, but he's got as much talent going forward as the table.
He's absolutely amazing at winning that ball back. He can outmuscle the best of them, but as soon as he gets that ball anywhere near that 18 yards, I really want him to not shoot.
Going back and looking at him in the Euros, I mean, I remember when he had that a couple of games where he was playing on that right side where he seemed to be absolutely everywhere.
But that's what got him the move back to Spurs originally, and then
Yeah.
for the first 2 seasons he was like, oh, this is one of the worst ones we've ever made. But last season, due to injuries mainly, he just came into the team and then he hasn't lost his place since. But you could argue that potentially a reason for the downfall.
Maybe.
Sissoko playing so much, you'd lose that bit of. Whereas compared to Moussa Dembele at his peak, he could actually use the ball with his feet more than Sissoko could.
Absolutely. I mean, like also bringing in Lo Celso as well from Betis.
He looks a very exciting player, but in the typical Spurs fashion, 2 of our 4 signings are out injured.
Yeah.
One of them's sat unused on a Leeds bench on loan.
Yeah.
And the other one seems to be knackered after an hour.
Yeah.
That whole Jack Clark signing at the time, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I didn't know too much about him at all. I think I heard it from you, Don.
Yeah.
I mean, the immediate loan back out, I mean, I can see what they've done to him, obviously, to get him some minutes. But, I mean, if the kid's not playing, I mean, it just raises a few more questions.
He's meant to be coming back in January, apparently. But
Yeah, we're going to activate that clause to bring him back in January. I mean, he's going out there to get minutes and he's not getting them. So he's more likely to get him in the Spurs squad than he is in that Leeds squad at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, if Spurs think that a shake-up is needed, then I think it might be time to just experiment and see what he can offer the Spurs team and see if he can push them forward to hopefully relight the top 4 hopes of the fans.
Going back and talking about the Pochettino situation, obviously we've mentioned the kind of manager he is. Obviously that exit door is possibly looming. I mean, we're not too sure it could happen. But if it does happen, is there anyone who you think available right now which you would like to see at the club? Dom, have you got any ideas?
Massimiliano Allegri.
Allegri.
Absolutely. He regarded as one of the most successful managers in this era. I mean, even if you're just looking at Juventus alone, he's in 5 seasons at Juventus, he led them to 5 consecutive Serie A titles, 4 Coppa Italias, and took them to 2 Champions League finals, albeit they didn't win, but that's proven of a manager who knows how to win trophies and can deal with high-profile players.
Yeah, a trophy-winning manager, to say the least. Sam, you got any ideas, mate?
yes, along the same lines, I've got 3 options that I'd be up for taking. Is Allegri, because obviously there is the links with him, and he has been learning English. There is a possibility that he could be coming to the Premier League, whether that be Spurs or Manchester United. And the other 2 is Jose Mourinho. He's a free man at the minute. He's a winner, but the only problem with him is that obviously he brings you trophies and success, but that 3rd season is always a worry.
He brings in a lot of ego as well, Mourinho.
And
does.
it's a disaster. It'd be a disaster waiting to happen. Him working with Daniel Levy, because Daniel Levy would not spend the money that Mourinho wants. But my other option would be Brendan Rodgers. As controversial as that may sound, but I think he is an absolute. Look at the change that he's brought into that Leicester team instantly.
Yeah.
They look miles better than they did under Claude Puel and, well, the managers since Ranieri, since the title winning season. But arguably, you could argue that this Leicester team, it probably won't win the league, as that Leicester team, it was right moment, right time for them. Everyone else was at the down. Every other top 6 team at that time was in a down period, so they capitalised on the right time. But you could argue that this Leicester team is better than that.
I'm going to throw a little curveball in here and say Gareth Southgate was also one of my candidates. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that's a bit stupid, as he's only ever had international club experience. But
I feel like that's quite romanticised, the pairing of Southgate and Tottenham.
yeah, a very English club with a very English manager.
Yeah. Very English manager, very, very good fashion sense as well. But I mean, I feel like his appointment, it would be good because obviously he's worked with a lot of those English players, he's gelled with a lot of them. But I feel like with someone like him coming to a club,
I think he's very much an international. He's suited to that international management. International is more about you got to motivate your players. I don't think it comes down to much tactics in international because you're not with them that long. So I think he'd get found out very quickly at club level, as he did with Middlesbrough, as he took them down 10 years ago now.
So. It was an awful long time ago, but I mean, you never know. It could be a right move for him, but I mean,
he could be the one.
He could be the one, but he has said he doesn't have any intentions on leaving anytime soon.
The only reason I put him up as a candidate is just because I feel like he might breathe a little bit of life into the England internationals in the team, the Dele Allis and Harry Winks, the players that are putting good performances, but they need to go that extra step. I feel that maybe just being under your international manager might show you want to give a little bit more for your club.
Yeah. Again, I think the Allegri appointment, that one's the one that interests me. Because right now, I'd say all with the exception of Luis Enrique, who is unfortunately going to be probably out for quite a while due to his current situation, which was obviously extremely, extremely sad to hear. But with the exception of Luis Enrique, I feel like right now he is the current manager right now, which is out there to be got.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like clubs right now, I feel like they are there to kind of win him over. They need to have these conversations. They need to be like, what's it going to take to get you at my club?
Yeah, I mean he's a class manager. He's proved it time and time again, and it's only a matter of time before some top team comes and snoops him up. Maybe like a Spurs. Spurs might need that little bit of an injection of that world class managerial experience to come and help them along.
He's shown Spurs what he could do a couple of years ago when we played them in the Champions League. That first half and the second leg, we was in cruise control. Was 1-0 up, leading. 3-2 on aggregate, looking very dominant. He made one little switch at half time, switched it completely, turned the game on his head. And of course, they went through.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you need. You need a manager who can go in losing. Pochettino reflects that same quality, but you go in and you can really get the players out into that second half and show that, look, we can win this game. We are losing at the moment, but we can win that game. And even if you look at Juventus' squad, it was quite an old squad. It's a very experienced squad, and it does reflect our squad in the sense that it is experienced. We're not a small club anymore. We're a big club that's had a lot of Champions League experience, a lot of Premier League experience, and we know how to turn games around. We just need a manager to guide that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I would say that's a very well-rounded argument. I would say one thing. Excuse me. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing from Tottenham whether they can turn it on or not. Again, another run in the Champions League. I mean, the last run, it'll probably go down. I think it was you said recently, Sam, that Champions League run is going to be one of the most memorable moments of Tottenham history.
Well, yeah, it's obviously the first Champions League final we've ever reached in our history, and I'd argue that run to the final was eclipses. I probably wouldn't argue better than an FA, but better than a League Cup win, because those moments against Man City and Ajax, the moments that every Spurs fan will remember for the rest of their life, that third Lucas Moura goal, I've never felt an emotion like it when that goal went in.
Yeah,
I can vouch for that.
I was gonna say I feel like especially for getting to the final, I feel like both of you guys were probably pretty intoxicated around that time.
Yeah.
Even if in the final we was absolutely robbed by some dodgy refereeing in the 60 seconds in.
Obviously, you went down to Tottenham to go and watch the game, didn't you, with the rest of the fans?
Yeah, it was a good atmosphere. It's just killed instantly by 60 seconds in, and it's one of them that we'll just look back on forever now. It's just a non-event of a final.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
Most Spursy way to end it.
It's a very Spursy way to do it. But you mentioned VAR then. Right now, as a little side note, obviously that was an extremely controversial call extremely early on. The Champions League last season was full of VAR calls like that.
Absolutely.
Do you personally feel that VAR is going to be a more of a hindrance for you guys progressing?
I think it's a hindrance for everyone. It's just the fans' experience when you're in there and it goes to VAR. You have no clue what's going on. Just like the other week when I was at the Spurs Newcastle game, and obviously there was the controversy with should Harry Kane have had a penalty, but you had no clue what was going on. And you look back and you're just like, there's a penalty, brings him down.
I don't know though, was it? I mean, I don't know if enough contact was there personally.
He goes down and rugby tackles him to the ground.
I feel like it is an opportunity for the fans to get involved there. If you've got screens, obviously Old Trafford and Anfield would be exempt from this rule.
Yeah.
But you look at the Tottenham Stadium. Two massive televisions. You can show the fans what they think. Get them involved. They should be taking leaves out of the book of the TMO in rugby, because you can see the decision. You can hear what the referees and the assistant referees are saying, and you can get the crowd involved. And if they know that it's not a penalty, you've got no complaints you can make, because you can say, well, it wasn't a penalty, so I can't really complain about that, or it wasn't an offside, so I can't really complain about that.
I feel like the one trouble you'd have with fan interaction would be the amount of, obviously, being at home. There'd be a lot of bias maybe. towards whether it, say if you were like, oh, he's been brought down in the penalty area, but we're unsure, and then you have the home fans being like, oh yeah, no, it wasn't a penalty. And I mean, obviously you'll have the referees to be like, okay, that was a blatant call, but like,
I think that's my big problem with VAR at the minute, especially in not so much in the Champions League because they're different sets of the not all, mate, but the Premier League refs are all massively in an all boys club. So you notice how most of the time with the VAR in the Premier League, you won't ever see a decision overturned because the referees in the VAR are too scared to overturn their mate's decision.
It is hidden behind this. It's hidden behind this whole quote clear and obvious shadow, isn't it? Where if the on-field referee makes a decision and VAR don't think that it's clear and obvious, then it's going to be a decision that isn't overturned. And I feel like VAR, the assistant referee, should be seen as a separate decision-making system to the on-field referee, and they can overturn the decision if they feel that it's the wrong decision that's been made.
It gave us a lot of interesting moments last season, especially with Tottenham. So it'll be interesting to see this season how it progresses, how it's implemented, and so forth. Again, one last kind of like main point I wanted to bring up about Tottenham. We've mentioned for a while now this. You guys are now at a big club level. And I feel like the trend of maybe wanting to stick with Poch, obviously Poch is taking you on an amazing ride, and I don't necessarily feel like he wants to leave, but if push comes to shove, is it the right decision? Does he get fired? Do you wait for him to, do you sort something out, or do you say to him, no, like, you've had your chance,
I think it's all down to him personally, because he's come out today and said, I won't get sacked. He's said how him and Daniel Levy are, quote, friends. I mean, I won't be friends with him because I think he's a...
Yeah, he's a
insert bleep.
I 100% think that he's still the manager to do it. He's I think it's a privilege that he's still here. I mean, he can walk into any managerial position with any other team,
even without trophies.
Exactly. That just highlights that point. And he can, and he's turned away clubs. He's turned away big clubs to commit himself to this future with Tottenham. And he's made it clear several times. So if he can keep doing that, and he's willing to put his, blood, sweat, and tears into trying to get this club a trophy, then 100% give him a chance. And I know we say that season after season, but he's got to come at some point.
Yeah, it's like the argument for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is he worthy to keep at the helm of Manchester United? I mean, if he's given time, yes, I think he can turn it around, and if he's given the funding. Poch has been given this long to keep Spurs afloat. He's done fine as of now. He's hit a little bit of a rocky patch, but I think he can steer the Spurs side back onto the right tracks again.
I feel like, because he is in a vulnerable position, as a Manchester United fan, a lot of the time I get questioned whether I would take him at the club. And as a manager, as somebody who I've seen the way he's developed players, I've seen how long he's been in the league for, there are clear benefits to me saying, yeah, I want him at the club. But I'm not massive. The only thing is, again, the lack of trophies. I feel like the person to lead United personally is somebody who has experience of being a serial winner. That's what I want. Right now, currently, it is Allegri, isn't it? He is the one out there to get. So, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you guys feel the same about Tottenham. I mean, like, if someone was going to come in and replace him, I feel like Tottenham need a serial winner.
You need someone like Allegri. Someone who's got that experience to win trophies. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah, just someone who knows to take it out to the next level. But so I mean, I hope you guys have enjoyed us talking a little bit more in depth about Tottenham this week. The last thing we need to do before we wrap everything up is just talk about the Premier League games for the week to come and see if we can make any decent
international break.
Yeah.
It's the international break.
There we go. We do have an international
We've
break.
just thrown the audience a bit of a curveball.
We have got a curveball.
You can hear them all shouting, it's the international break, it's the international break.
Yeah.
Just totally, absolutely.
God, Joe, you buffoon.
International break, honestly.
It's a great time for Man United fans.
Oh,
and for Spurs fans, apparently.
It's time for us all to have a bit of a breather. Just kind of like...
No, we need to keep pushing on. Go on, Liverpool.
I was going to say, Liverpool are the only club right now who can keep going with that momentum.
Yep.
But anyway, if we don't have any Premier League games to wrap up, apart from that, guys, I think we're all good for today.
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you to Sam and Don for coming on.
Yeah, cheers.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys.
Yeah, it's been great.
Anything to plug?
Anything to plug? Any potential projects in the works? I think I was going to say, if you want to keep updated with us, obviously you can check our social media platforms. This will be available on YouTube. So as always, please like and subscribe. We will include Dom and Sam's socials as well if you guys want to give them a follow and a few likes as well.
Yep.
And thank you very much, guys. We will see you next week.